what we're all born with is, I call it magnificence. And magnificence is to magnify the essence of who we are. And that essence of who we are, that spark of electricity, that thing that makes us alive, all of us have. It's what we do with it that makes the difference.
Welcome to this week's Escape Your Limits podcast. Today we're speaking with a doctor in neuropsychology and one of the most sought after ultimate performance specialists in the industry. Having delivered hundreds of workshops to over 5 million people around the globe and coached celebrity actors, athletes, CEOs, and even royalty, my guest has perfected the ability to create rapid personal change that moves people to succeed. In our interview, we discuss the common habits and rituals used by consistent high performers that are uncommon in everyone else, the mistakes people make when starting out on the road to success and how to avoid them, and why it's important to understand the difference between a journey and a voyage to avoid failure after a great success. So please welcome Mr. Joseph McClendon III to the Escape Your Limits podcast. Mr. Joseph McClendon, thank you for inviting me into your wonderful new home.
You're absolutely welcome. This is my very first interview in this home. So thank you for having me. Yeah.
I feel privileged about that. Okay. It's been a couple of years as well.
Yes, sir, it has.
So I wanted to talk about success and achieving it. It's a new year, and it's one of the things everyone's talking about, goals, and I guess it's the thing that you do at this time of year. And I know you've got a lot of experience in that, helping people to, in sort of your words, go further faster. Yeah. But I've been on this journey, you know, many other people, and although there's many books out there and courses, and you do a ton of stuff, it's not as simple as it sounds in my experience.
Well, I say that it's simple, but not necessarily easy. I always look at it like this, that life is much simpler than we've been led to believe. You know, sometimes we look at something, we think about whether it's building our body or making money or whatever. We look at all the pieces and all the things that we got to do it. And the truth of the matter is the pieces fall into place once you start doing them, the simplicity of it. But the hardest part is getting ourselves to actually do those things, to follow through on them. Everybody makes New Year's resolutions. Everybody sets goals. Everybody wants to do something, and we all want to do something, and we're willing to do it when we're excited about it or we're hurting. We're willing to do it. But when it comes down to actually doing it, procrastination, hesitation, fear of failure, fear of success, self-doubt, self-loathing, imposter syndrome, all those things pile up on us and distractions, and it stops us from doing it.
So you've been involved, from what I understand, coaching over 5 million people. So you've got a lot more experience than the average guy or girl on the street. What I was interested in is what are the common thieves of success? You know, are there some things that just out of all those people, you know, all of us have got the same kind of things in common in terms of preventing us from sort of getting there?
I think the most common with most people is distraction. Distraction causes distraction, and people say it's lack of focus. I say it's lack of refocus, because there's distractions everywhere. It's on our phone. It's you know, all around us everywhere, and it's so much easier to be distracted and scroll and to do all those things than it is to work out or to plan or to set things or to set things up. And so I think that's the biggest common denominator with regard to what causes people to procrastinate and hesitate and all those things.
And previously you mentioned some of these, like self-image, self-doubt. Do you think there's these sort of unresolved issues in people that also are part of that?
No doubt. Everybody comes with baggage, all of us. And those unresolved issues, those unresolved things, it's not that they necessarily need to be resolved and completely eliminated from our lives. It's just that we need to learn how to deal with whatever's going on. They will. We can mitigate those things down to nothing if we work on them. And most people, A, don't have the tools to be able to do that. And secondly, it's more painful, and it's scary to go after and dig deep within ourselves, because we don't know what that is. So oftentimes the better thing to do is to learn how to deal with how we are in a moment. And I always say that it's human mechanics. It is that when we do something, It's physics that when we do something, we get better at it. So if we work on snapping ourselves out of when we're frustrated, snapping ourselves out of it when we're scared, and putting ourselves in a better state or putting ourselves in a better attitude, then the more we do it, the better we get at it. And that starts to mitigate the occurrence of it showing up in our lives as well.
So and we talked about it in the previous podcast, I recommend people listen to that, but you had some baggage, a lot worse than most people probably have had, and that would have probably created issues in your success journey.
No doubt.
But you found ways to overcome it, where now you actually inspire millions of people. What was there one thing that you did in terms of, you were intimidated and all kinds of stuff. Was there one thing that you worked on for yourself to when those kind of thoughts and doubts and things came in your mind, or you went back to some of those moments, that you were able to kind of change, like, I'm done with that and I'm moving on? Because you obviously have moved on, but
I would answer that like this. Unknowingly, I worked on those things. I worked on what I wanted and what I thought I needed at the moment, which at the time, because I was homeless. I worked on, getting a job, getting a house, getting a girlfriend and things like that, and making money. And
we've got the little dog there.
So I worked on those things, and while I worked on going after what I wanted, the fears came up. The self-doubts and things, they came up. And so while I was going in that direction, as long as I kept looking at what I wanted and doing the things that were necessary to make those things happen, then I didn't know that I was working on those pieces. But then once I noticed that those pieces were there and I started to study psychology, then I started to recognize, well, there's something I can do about those. And then I started to learn the processes and the techniques to actually hone in on that thing and just don't be afraid of it, but go, there it is, and here's what I want. It doesn't include that, so let me learn how to deal with that. And I learned the tools and the processes. To be honest, I learned the tools and the processes to help other people before I help myself. Right. And then I started to realize it's physician, heal thyself. And then I started to work on myself, and that's when things started to change better.
So if people, because you get tons of books and information, self-help, success stories, etc. And I suppose it's quite easy to just question, is all this really, does any of this actually work, or is it just great marketing? In your experience, and a lot of and we'll come on to it in a bit, but some of these systems that you've been involved in and developed and worked with other people on, are they generally, if you follow the steps, is there a high level of chance that you're going to be successful if you implement them?
The answer is absolutely yes, and the evidence is all around us. The evidence is, I always say to people, what do you want? And then find somebody that's already done what you want and do what they did. Check out what they did. And overwhelmingly, across the board, I don't care who I've had the privilege of being around some pretty A-list people, if you will, and working with people that others might not have access to. But overwhelmingly, all of them, I can't think of one that hasn't, has some sort of regiment, has some sort of ritual, has had some sort of background in personal development or something that they learned how to, at the very least, mitigate their fears and their doubts and things like that. So I think the evidence is all around us.
Do you think it's something, we were speaking of just off camera about the Tony Robbins stuff I did, and I was immersed in it for probably about 10 years, and it was great. And I did make a lot of changes, and a lot of those still stick. But do you find that when you go through that process, whether you're being coached or you're doing a workshop, that you can do it, but it doesn't mean that now you're fixed and you're not that person? Is it like working out, you've got to continuously condition yourself?
Absolutely. To this day, I still do seminars and workshops, other people's, and certifications and do things like that. Training never stops. It doesn't. You can't look at a professional athlete and that, let's say a baseball player or a soccer player and go, okay, they just show up at the game and work out the rest of the year. They drink beer and hang out. They don't. They don't stop. They continue to train. If they want to stay in the game, they continue to train.
Mm. And do you see people that also like revert back and kind of wonder whether it is working or not, but because they've sort of stop training essentially.
Of course. And sometimes unknowingly they stop training. And training's, might not necessarily be the best word for it. Because here's what happens. People want stuff and then they go after it. And then when it starts to show up, they forget what they did to get it. And then they revert back to doing other things, and they continue to just celebrate and just to live with that thing right there. Instead of, like the old, it's not a saying, it's the truth, that, back in the 60s when the astronauts came back from the moon and going into space, I don't know if most people know this or not, but several of them were on antidepressants and got depressed and even suicidal. And part of the reason is because they didn't know back then, what do you do after you've gone to the moon? What's after that? You've got to set new goals. You've got to set new outcomes and things like that. And the ones that did were the ones that were happier. John Glenn, and, some of them went into politics and things like that. And I say that because it's kind of the same with human beings. It's when we've heard this old saying, it's not the destination, it's the journey. And I say it's the voyage within the journey. Journey is cradle to grave. We're all on this journey. But voyages have a place that you disembark, you arrive somewhere, you celebrate, and you have a good time. Then what do? You go on another voyage. You take what you learned and you bring it to your life, the experience and all, you bring it to your life, and you start on another voyage. And so it's always important to set another voyage and another voyage and another voyage going out there. And then when you do that, what happens is your brain, it's the carrot on the stick. Your brain goes, oh, that's what's next. That's what's next. And that becomes our, I need to think of a word for it, but good distraction, if you will, is that we refocus on that. Oh yeah, this is what's next. This is what's next.
Yeah, I like that. And I've never thought about, and I've tried to balance that. Okay, well, this is the goal, but it's not about the goal, it's the journey. But you're right. I think having there's those mini voyages. Trips or voyages within that I think sometimes you kind of lose your way a little bit.
You would absolutely, because of the voyage is like this big ominous thing, and it's all it's all out there, and sometimes that becomes intimidating in itself. It becomes something that because all of us are human and we go, that's too much, especially when we get overwhelmed. I got to, get the kids from soccer. I got to do this. I got to move. I just moved into this house right now, and moving and root canal work. I don't know. Yeah, they're similar. But there's a lot to do. And I was telling the movers when they showed up here, you never know how much crap you got till you move. Yeah. And that's a metaphor for our lives as well. When we want to make a change in our lives, we got to bring all of this stuff with us. Or we got to go, this is some of the stuff that I don't want to bring with me. And this is stuff that I want to keep. And where am I going to put it when I get it? All those things as well. So it's really important to kind of look at your life as stages, if you will.
And is that, and that's an interesting point you mentioned there, is that part of the process then where, let's use the moving as an example with your personal voyages, do you almost have to take stock and look at all the boxes and it's like, look, do I really want to take this on this journey, or am I going to bin a load of that stuff? Do you find that you have to do that through those different stages?
I don't think you have to, but I think it's wise to. I created something several years ago called the New Year's Evolution. And I created it just for that, because here's what happens is, it's that time of year where people set New Year's resolutions. Truth of the matter is, matter of fact, Deepak Chopra said this years ago, and I remember this, and it's true, that 80% of the New Year's resolutions that people make are the same ones they made last year. And so, which means they didn't do it, and then B, most of them didn't even get started on it, because most of us make our New Year's resolutions like we go, okay, I'm going to lose weight, and that's it. We don't have a plan, we're willing to do it. I'm going to make money. I'm going to do that kind of thing. And so what I realized was, I learned this again through process. I created something called the New Year's Evolution to really get people to do that. Here's the things that you'll want. It's not just one thing, because, I call it being wealthy. We all want to be wealthy. Wealthy to me means being healthy, happy, and financially abundant. And all of the subsets that come underneath there, love and relationships and things that go along with that. And so that's a big moving van full of stuff, So it's important to at least once break it down and go, this is the specific thing that I want to take. I don't want to take this one. I don't want to take that. And spend the time. You could take a couple days, but it's worth it to do it, because then once you've done it, you don't have to do it again for at least another year.
Thank you for supporting the Escape Your Limits podcast. If you're thinking about creating a unique and engaging fitness space to take your fitness to the next level, then we have you covered. Escape Fitness design and manufacture some of the most innovative, attractive, and durable functional training and free weight equipment used by many of the best trainers and fitness brands across the globe. As a valued listener, we are offering you a 10% discount off many of the products on our website. You can check out the full range by going to escapefitness.com and use the code DUMBBELL. That's escapefitness.com using the code DUMBBELL. That's it from me. Please enjoy the rest of this interview. You've met a lot of successful people, and I know when success is a very broad word, and it can be defined in many different areas. Some people can be successful in one thing and not in another, but people that seem to have it figured out in the definition, you've just healthy, wealthy, happy. What do you think they have or they're doing? Are they born with some gene that kind of helps that, or do you notice these patterns within those people in your own personal experience?
In my personal experience, we're all born with the same gene. We're all born with the same stuff. Is somebody that is 6'7" more predisposed to be a better basketball player than me? Maybe so. I'm 5'9". But there's plenty of 6'7" people that'll never play basketball. They can never do anything. Okay. So what we're all born with is, I call it magnificence. And magnificence is to magnify the essence of who we are. And that essence of who we are, that spark of electricity, that thing that makes us alive, all of us have. It's what we do with it that makes the difference. And to answer your question, the ones that are, again, it's a broad description, but successful, healthy, wealthy, and financially abundant, are the ones that generally have some, like I said, regimen or ritual or something that they do or have done that have allowed them to think differently than the average person, and do differently than the average person, and feel different than the average person.
Right. So that comes on then to an important question, and we spoke about it a little bit on our last podcast, but it's almost like, well, where do you start? So it's a new year. You're setting your goals. And I know you're a big state person, because I've been jumping up and down, doing all kinds of crazy stuff, shaking my ass and that. But where's a good first place to start? Where, okay, last year weren't great. New sheet of paper. What's a good? Yeah. Where do you go?
Preparation. First off, start with relax. Relax, because most people haven't figured it out yet that the sun comes up every single day. I promise you it's going to come up tomorrow. I bet everything I have that the sun is going to come up in the morning. That tomorrow is going to come. And most people haven't figured out that they have already figured out how to live to get everything done so they're still alive every single day. And I know that sounds simple, but just to relax and go, hey, I'm already successful on some level. I just want to be more. Because as soon as we do that, then here's what happens. We have, in our brain will release certain chemicals. If we're stressed, it's going to release cortisol, which makes the adrenaline go, which makes all the stuff that makes us stressed and makes us unhealthy, makes us worried and all those things. And that's going to keep on going. But as soon as we relax and we're grateful and we go, okay, well, at least I have this. This is great. Let me look around what I do have. No matter what, I'm still on this side of the dirt. Okay. And as soon as we relax, then we get to ask the second question. What do I really want? What do I really want? And I say to people, what you write is what you invite. What you don't is what you want. And I don't mean type it into your iPad or your phone or anything like that. I mean write it down on a sheet of paper.
Really? Is there a difference between typing and writing?
Absolutely. Don't get me started. And just make a list of everything that you want. Don't go, I can't have that because that's too expensive. There's not enough time or anything. Just list everything that you want. Because what's happening is, what you're doing is people live in a state of overwhelm. Overwhelm is just having too much stuff in your head at one time. And then the emotions attached, especially too much emotionally filled stuff. But get it out of your head and put it on a piece of paper. In a journal or whatever. And then it's out of your head and it's there. And then you get to look at it and it's out of you and it's on a piece of paper. And then you go, okay, well, this is the most important. This is next important. This is most important. I get to have it all. But this is the things I'm going to work on first. And what happens is the process because I'm a big process guy. The process makes you think differently, and then when you think differently, you feel differently, and when you feel differently, you do differently. That way you simplify everything. So those two, just doing those two steps alone, let alone the rest of it, which is planning and things like that, allows you to feel like you can and will do it versus going, I want to make more money, but, I don't know how. There's that Elon Musk out there. He's so far ahead of me. I can never do that. I can do that. And then we go down that rabbit hole that causes us to feel like crap. And then guess what? It's easier to eat cake and scroll through your phone.
Yeah, that's right. So I like that. That brings up a question for me, and we talked about it last time, where you gave a nice story about riding a horse, and it's like, look, because I was like, well, what if you don't know your aim? It's like, look, I want this financial success. I haven't got it at the moment, but it's like, well, what am I going to do to get me there? I know what I want. That's quite clearly, I've got it on my board, but there's a gap between what you want. Are you going to work for a company? Are you going to create a company? If you create a company, what are you going to sell? And you said to me last time, look, just get on a horse. Doesn't matter what horse, you can always get off it.
Yeah.
But, if, for example, it's like, look, I've been riding this bloody horse for 2 or 3 years now, and I have no idea where it's going. How long do you ride the horse, and when do you know that it's time to change?
That's a really great question. And the answer to that is to check in to see how it's going, because most people get on their horse and just ride versus checking in. Like, again, when do we make New Year's resolutions? Once a year, New Year's Eve, right? But instead, when I check in every single week to see how that horse is riding, to see if I like it, to see if it's getting closer to my destination, my goal, my outcome, to see how I feel about it. And you'll know it doesn't feel good. This is where I thought you were going to ask is, what do you do in the meantime? And what do you do if you don't know what your goal is?
Yeah.
The answer is help somebody. I know that sounds altruistic and unicorns and crystals and things like that. But the truth of the matter is, I heard this saying the other day that hurt people that are hurting inside, that are scared, they're afraid, they hurt other people. They don't do as much for other people. But healing people help people. And so as long as you start to recognize that, wait a minute, and you can do it the other way around. You go, I'm going to go out and I'm going to, like it's Christmas time, or when it's Christmas time or whatever, it doesn't have to wait to that. Go do something and help somebody out. Learn something and teach somebody. I always say to people, if you learn anything from me, not that I'm the end all and be all or so wise, but if you learn anything from me, pay it forward. Tell somebody else. You don't have to tell them I taught you. You don't have to give me any credit at all. That's not what I'm looking for. But if you go to somebody and you go, hey, here's what I learned. If we just put a smile on our face, it makes our brain release dopamine, which makes us feel better. And if we just do that enough times, it's human dynamics. We'll get better, we'll feel better, and all of those things. If you just teach people what you know and just tell people what you know, whether they believe it or not, you're putting it out there and you're doing something and you're helping other people. It feels so good. And then what happens is that's another great distraction. I need to think of a new word. Let's call it prostraction, something like that. Something that gets you to look where you want to go versus where you don't want to go.
Yeah, I like that. In the meantime, where you're trying to figure it out, it's like, okay, well, just go and help someone. My wife is very good at doing that, and they're everything comes to her, but she's always like just helping everyone, and I think sometimes you can be very focused on what you want and you forget about doing that. So another following on from that changing, obviously it's not comfortable for people to change. And so coming back to this horse metaphor, if you're on it and it's like, maybe I'm not going where I am, maybe I am. How do people get the courage to one, I suppose, notice, and then two, it's like, look, this just isn't the right horse. And now you're going to have to go through that pain of getting on another one when you're probably comfortable enough, but not probably where you are.
What you start off saying is people are not comfortable with change. And you're absolutely right. And it's something that, again, people that are very successful are more comfortable with change than others. Much more comfortable. And so learning this skill, I call it encoding, encoding our nervous system to default to our best behavior, to default to our best emotion. If we know we have to change, but it doesn't feel good and we're afraid and it's uncomfortable. But we know we should, could, would do it, and that's going to get us closer to our goals, no matter what it is. Changing that horse or exercising or making that phone call or doing whatever it takes. But as we work on that uncomfortableness, how to mitigate it, interrupt that pattern, and train ourselves, encode ourselves, program ourselves to default to going, oh, okay, wait a minute, there I go, I was freaking out again. Okay, let me go. That uncomfortableness means it's time to do something. And then reward ourselves and all those steps that are in between. There's not a lot, but there's a few steps that are in between that get us to go from feeling like crap to feeling excited about something. And again, the more we do it, it's human physics. The more we do it, the better we get at it, and it starts to happen automatically.
Are there small, when we talk about change, are there small things that you can do to sort of like try and encourage change? Like, I'm going to change this, I'm going to change that, to get more comfortable with making some of that changes in your life?
Yeah, absolutely. First off, don't wait. Don't wait. Deliberately, aggressively go after the very thing that you don't want, which is to feel bad. Aggressively go after it. In other words, I have this formula. It's called feel bad on purpose, then interrupt that pattern. I'll tell you what that means here in a second. And then feel good on purpose, and then celebrate. Feel bad, interrupt the pattern, feel good, and celebrate. And here's what happens when we do that, is most people will, I'll give you this example. I always say to people, if you got a fear of dogs and you come into my office, there's going to be a dog there. And I'm going to purposely put that dog there because I want you to feel bad. I want you to be scared. Because in that moment, I get to do something called interrupting your pattern. This is, again, part of encoding ourselves, interrupting the pattern. I'm going to startle you out of it. I'm going to shake you out of it. And when you're out of it and you're in that, hey, what just happened here? And you're confused. You're no longer worried about the dog. You're going, we've all done this. We've all gone, you're sitting here going, I got to go into the kitchen and get an ink pen. And you stand up and you go in the kitchen and you're just wandering around going, what did I come in here for? Well, you interrupted your own pattern, but you're no longer in the state that you were before. And so I use that and I teach people how to use that on purpose over and over again until pretty soon, the very thing that used to cause you to feel uncomfortable is the thing that causes you to feel comfortable. And then, we can always cause ourselves to feel good. It's as simple as a smile. A smile is not just, like I always say, unicorns and crystals and rainbows and, puppies and things like that. It's physics. When we smile, our brain releases dopamine. Dopamine makes the brain go, okay, wait a minute, what just happened before this? Let's do it again. And so the more we do that, the better we get at it. And that's why happy people get happier. Sad people get sadder, bottom line. What we practice is what we get better at.
On that, as it's brought up a thought, I've done NLP and I've done some work with you at a Tony Robbins event where I think in NLP they call them pattern interrupts.
Yes.
And I'm not sure if this is a true story, but is it right when Tony Robbins started his journey that most of his success was based just purely on the pattern interrupts? Was that a big part of what he did?
Yeah. Again, I call it neuroencoding. There are, at the risk of sounding arrogant, I have a formal education in neuropsychology. I have easily 24 different certifications in hypnotherapy and gestalt therapy and you name it. But I don't use them all. I only use a handful of them. And the ones that are the most effective are things like pattern interrupts and anchoring and reframing and things like that. So that handful of things that I use are the things that are the most effective. And I would agree with you that those, we used to say anchoring, reframing, and pattern interrupts and things like that. That's kind of our bread and butter. And everybody's different. So you got to know how to work with yourself and other people as well.
So you gave a bit of an example, but if we're trying to create those pattern interrupts, then is that something that you would train yourself, in a day, like when something's not going good or you've had that sort of feeling of, I'm on this road again, you try and sort of snap out of it by, when you're feeling that feeling, you do something to make you feel good, or what's a quick tip?
That's one way, but remember what I said, don't wait.
Okay.
Kill the monster while it's a baby. Coax the monster out of its burrow, and when it comes out, cut its head off. What that means is cause yourself to feel bad on purpose. Go, okay, my taxes. And then when you do, snap yourself out of it. If you just do that, if you just feel bad on purpose and then snap yourself out of it, if you do that enough times, then what'll happen is the very thing, just even trying to feel bad, you'll snap yourself out of it. Now that's an oversimplification. And there's something in neuroencoding that I call the stop technique. It's a process that I tell people live. If you come to my seminar, bring me your worst nightmare, bring me your worst memory, your worst fear, something that happened to you in the past or whatever, because by the end of that day, somewhere during that day, you're not going to be able to feel that way again. And it's not going to be something that I do to you. It's going to do something that we do together. And then you'll have the tool for the rest of your life.
Right. Is that where that shaking your ass thing comes along?
I developed that. It was a fun thing to do, but the truth of the matter is, it's science. That when you shake your ass, when you move your body, you cannot feel bad. Right. You cannot. Dopamine release. And so I created it so that people will have fun in doing it. And remember, honeybee flies around collecting honey, but it doesn't know that it's pollinating the flowers. And so if I can get people to do certain things, and if I can get myself to do certain things, while I'm doing that, it's also serving another purpose and creating and changing something else, then I kill two birds with one stone. Mm.
So it's really just taking when those thoughts, and you gave a bit of an example of what you think, and I can't remember what was it? You think, then you take action. What was that?
Well, I look at it a little bit differently. Human mechanics, again, it's think, feel,
right,
do, have.
Okay.
As I think, so I feel. So whatever I'm thinking of, whatever I'm looking at, whatever I'm focused on with my eyes open or my eyes closed, whatever I'm saying to myself is thinking. Thinking is just imagination and conversation inside of our heads. That causes release of chemicals in our brain that cause us to feel a certain way. And whether it's good thoughts and carrot on the stick thoughts, what I'm going to have, what I want, who I love, my children or whatever, in that moment, it's causing us to feel a certain way. And if we feel good, then guess what? We're probably going to do good. We're going to do better. If we feel bad, if we're focused on something, and inadvertently as well, I always say this, that our biggest challenge are distractions right now, and those distractions do not have our best interest at heart. I just got, the television set up here, and we don't watch commercial television. My son and I don't. We'll watch like Netflix or something like that. I watch commercial television when I go to hotels and I'm doing an event and I'm in the hotel and I look at it, and it hurts my heart to see how much not only negativity there is, but it's by design. And the shows to see, there can't be that much murder and crime going on in the world that, there's so much of that stuff going on. So we get distracted in looking at that stuff, and that's still thinking,
right?
Which doesn't make us feel good. And as we feel, then we don't do, and then we don't do, we don't have.
Right. So that comes on to action then. We talked about breaking your pattern by moving or doing something immediately. And a big part of what I've heard you talk about is, it's about taking action. It's no good just thinking about it. You've got to do something. What have you found is a good place to start taking action? And then how do you continue with that momentum? So we talked about, getting the aim or making that decision. And this word action is used a lot, but what is action? How do you start, and how do you kind of keep up that momentum?
It's what you do with the action that will determine whether you're going to continue to take that action. And what I mean by that is people they'll do something, they'll take some action. However they got there, they'll take some action. If you're not supposed to eat cake, or you decide, I'm going to stop eating cake because I want to lose weight, and you don't eat cake, then most people will go, okay, I didn't eat cake. That was hard. Okay, I got to do it again. I got to do it again. But that very action right there will guarantee that they're going to eat cake again. Because what you have to do is you've got to reward yourself. You've got to give yourself that dopamine release. You've got to give yourself some sort of recognition, acknowledgement, and reward that you succeeded at it. Otherwise, your brain goes, why bother? So it's called celebration. That's why I created shaking that ass and that kind of thing, or patting yourself on the back, or doing something, even if it's just a smile to go, hey, I did it. Even if it's just a little bitty thing. Then your nervous system, because it feels good, goes, that felt good. What just happened? Oh, I didn't eat cake. Let's do it again. So the next time it comes around to eating cake, your nervous system goes, oh, we didn't eat cake. Let's feel good again.
So like micro celebrations almost.
Yes, constantly.
Interesting.
Constantly. And not just about that one thing, about anything and everything. I say aggressively look for things to be happy about. Aggressively look for things to celebrate. At the end of every single day, as I get into bed, I look around and I go, look at what we got done today, or look at what happened today. Because what happens is you get better at, again, I keep saying this, human physics, you get better at looking for what you want. You get better at feeling good no matter what. That way, when the bad stuff does come, because it's going to, then what happens is we automatically default to feeling better and to going, okay, it's going to work out or whatever. Let's look for it and let's be optimistic. To me, optimism is options, is looking for the options versus pessimism, which is looking for, you have very, when we're pessimistic, we're in our sympathetic nervous system, which is fight or flight. When we're optimistic, we are parasympathetic and we're going, okay, well, what else could I do? What else could I do here? And so what that causes us to do is we become optimistic about doing it again. And then the second part, because I said there's two pieces. The second part is action is the step, is doing something. Activity is what we want to do. Activity is action repeated over and over again till we surpass our goal. Because if I go to the gym and I want to work out this muscle, I go and I lift it 10 times, that's not going to build that muscle. It's going to build that muscle if I go the next day, the next day, the next day, and keep on going. That's activity. And once we get it into our brain that it's not just going today, because people go, I got to go to the gym today. No, I get to go to the gym today, and I get to go to the gym every single day. And make ourselves feel good about it, then pretty good. And again, lastly, evidence is out there that people that have, and I'm just using, making money or building a better body, they all say and do the same thing. They love what they do. A runner loves to run, where most people hate running. Somebody that goes and works out at the gym, they love it. And I'm not saying you have to get there, but getting closer to that is the best thing, because you develop the want to do it. You develop the pull to go do it.
So could you compare it? You used the bicep analogy. Could you compare then like this almost like starting the new year? People have their fitness goals and that will apply, but then also if you want your mental and business goals. By doing some of these little things that you're talking about, are you gradually changing yourself from someone who's probably not got that great shape to, you're adding all these little workouts together and you're actually shaping and, creating a more fit mind? Are these little exercises that are actually transforming the health of it?
The brain has to come along with it.
Okay.
The psychology has to come along with it. Psychology is just our constant thoughts that we have about ourselves, about other people, and about the world around us. And I challenge anybody to tell me somebody that, again, using weight loss as an example, that has lost a lot of weight, that has not changed as a person. It comes along with the game. In some level, they may not have become, some scholar or something like that, but on some level, they've become a different person psychologically than that person that was 200-300 pounds or something. Something happens to the mind as they do that, and it's all intermingled. It's not mutually exclusive or separate or anything like that. This never leaves this body. It's all together at the same time, and they work in concert with each other, and they move each other forward or backwards.
And it seems the people that do go back to how they were, in some cases, it's like there's still something up here that's got to be.
There is, no doubt.
Overcome. So what about people and mentors then? How important is that? And what are some of your ideas and experience about looking for people, either paid or unpaid, to sort of work? I suppose two questions. One, is that important part of the journey? And two, how do you go about finding the best support if that is important?
I think it's a critical part of the journey. Critical part of the journey and the voyages. Because we've all had, now there's a difference between a mentor and a coach. A coach is somebody that has a level of expertise about something and can motivate you, empower you, excite you, and see some things that you might not be able to see about yourself. But not all coaches are better at what they're coaching you to do. Michael Jordan's basketball coaches, Stephen Curry right now, one of the greatest players that's out there right now. His coaches are not better basketball players than they are. But a mentor is somebody that's been there, done that, and is generally better at the thing that they're mentoring you to do. Elon Musk is a great mentor because he's already done there, you know. I shouldn't say a great mentor, but be an example of somebody that you can learn a lot from. And so looking for the best. So first off, find a mentor and looking for the best. At the very least, the search, as ye seek, so shall ye find, but as ye seek, so shall it find you as well, because they'll come up out of the woodwork. You'll start to see things. You know, we were talking about this house that I'm living in right now. I wanted, you know, I have this thing called magnetism. It's part of the 60-20-20 rule that when I want something, I go looking for it, because as I look for it, stuff starts to come up. I take my son to school the same way every day. And once I said, I needed a gated community with, you know, the house. I described the house with marble floors, all the stuff. I needed all this stuff and everything, but this area doesn't have them. But as soon as I started looking for it, then guess what? One day I looked to the right and boom, there it is. It's always been here, but my reticular activating system wasn't working looking for it. And so looking for those mentors and those coaches, whether you can be personally with them or do it online or whatever. That's why we were talking about this before. Your journey or your voyages with Tony Robbins, my voyages with, you know, hundreds of different people that I've been through. I'm constantly doing that because I'm constantly looking for more mentors and more people that I can learn from. That's part of it. The other thing is to learn the skills of let's just say shifting and changing oneself. Physician, heal thyself. Learn the skills of doing that for yourself and so that you can help other people as well. Because as you do, you go, and I always ask people, do you want what you want sooner rather than later? Everybody says, yeah. I call that being further, faster. Well, learn the skill of changing, adjusting, mitigating, or whatever it takes. Learn the skill of being able to shift your own psychology to the type of psychology that's going to serve you, serve the world, and serve the purpose that you want to get.
Ken, is there things that you can also do to be a good student with a mentor?
Yes, no doubt. Yeah. That's why we have 2 ears and 1 mouth. Shut up and listen. Absolutely. That's the best students. Listen and consider first.
Right.
Listen, and when you hear something, go, maybe I could learn something about that. And don't, here's the other thing. I learned this a long time. My father taught me this. My father goes, listen, you're not always going to have the answers right now. Relax, because it'll come to you. And sometimes, not sometimes, it's like most of the time now, and when I can't figure something out, when I can't, there's a problem or something like that, I know now, and I've encoded myself to automatically go, okay, just relax. We'll figure something out. And move to something else and come back. I heard a story years ago about, and it was told by Napoleon Hill. And he said that he didn't know what the name of the book, Think and Grow Rich, was going to be. He said he had no idea. The day before the book was supposed to be published. And he said, so I just relaxed. I said, let me go to sleep, and the answer's going to come in the morning. And he said, in the morning he woke up and he goes, Think and Grow Rich. And he got it. I remember hearing that story and going, okay, what did he do in between there? Because what's important about that story is he didn't beat himself up. He didn't, and obviously he'd already written the book, so he knew what to do. And again, greatest book of all times with regard to personal development. What he did was just follow the steps. Relax. That's the hardest thing for most people, especially achievers. Especially achievers. It's like, no, I got to go. I got to work. I got to, stress. And what happens is they burn out, they plateau and all those things. Instead, freaking chill out for a moment, because the answers will come. You got other stuff to do. Don't confuse waiting with failure, because a lot of people do. They go, if I stop, then I'll lose my momentum. No, you won't. You'll actually get more done if you stop and relax. You've been in my house. I got a room upstairs in my house that's full of bass guitars. Yeah, that's my favorite thing to do. Well, one of the favorite things to do. And what I do, like clockwork, is every couple of hours, I'll stop. I don't care what I'm doing, and I'll go in there for 20 minutes and just play bass. And because in that, I don't care what I'm doing. And by the way, when I come back, I'm sharper, and I get answers. Sometimes I'll have to stop playing bass because I got the answer. That's the way the brain works.
So that leads me on to resistance then. Based on what you've just said then, can there be situations where you're going after something and you feel it's right, and a big percentage of it's right, but you keep hitting up resistance, and you can either just try and bulldoze through and it's even more difficult, or you can, which is very, like you say, is very difficult to do, you can just sort of step back and wait. In terms of that scenario I've just given you then, are there some cases where it's like, look, you may not be on the wrong path because you're getting resistance. You may just need to take that side step, play your bass guitar, and maybe it will be a little bit clearer. Is it?
Yeah, but that's a process.
Okay.
And see, when you condition yourself to do that, because see, here's all stress does. Stress releases, like I said, cortisol makes us feel bad and everything. Don't confuse, and like I said, don't confuse waiting with failure, but also don't confuse relaxing for a moment with failure either. Don't confuse stopping and going, because what you just said right there is you go, okay, wait a minute, this resistance, that's stopping for a moment. That you've trained yourself to go, okay, wait a minute, let me consider that this resistance means that it's time for me to relax for a moment because I will go further, or this resistance is part of the process. See, those are options. Then you're optimistic versus going, this resistance doesn't feel good, I hate this. I'm going to go have a beer. I'm going to go have something. I'm going to do something to take myself out of this pain, versus going, here it is again. Let me relax. Let me go play bass. Let me go do something for a moment, and I'll come back to it. I'll come back fresh.
How do you develop the sort of skills to be able to recognize that then?
How did I?
Yeah.
Well, I'm proud to say and happy to say that I've had some amazing mentors and teachers and coaches throughout my life that have taught me skills. And then the other side of it is I have 34 years of experience doing it now. And as I said earlier when we were talking, because somebody helped me in my worst times of my life, what I pledged my life to be was to help other people as well. And when you help other people, and you learn skills to be able to help people, and you get those results, and you pare it down to the things that work, then what happens is number one, you do it on yourself first. You get to do it for yourself. But you develop a habit of being able to make a change in people. See, I always tell people that your skill set, the most important skill set that you're ever gonna have, is the skill set of learning to manage your own self, to manage your own emotions. And when you do, teach it to somebody else, life will change.
If you're going through outside of what you've said, and I think that helping people is probably like a big part of solving a lot of issues. But if you're going through this sort of bad state for a period, and you're kind of quite buried, you feel as though you're 1,000 feet underground, and it's very difficult to get out. Outside of what we've talked about, like helping people and things, are there any other sort of rituals for those bad states that you can start putting in regularly to kind of make a difference?
Stop digging.
Yeah.
If you're in a hole, stop digging. That's the first rule of getting out of a hole, is to stop digging. Because what happened, when I say digging, what I mean by that is that the worry, the stress, the doing all of the things that keep you in that state, instead of doing something about feeling better when you feel bad. Remember, feel bad, interrupt the pattern, feel good, celebrate. Those four things. If you catch yourself feeling bad, then go, wait a minute, I just caught myself feeling bad. Let me take a deep breath and shake myself out, pat myself on the back. If you just do that alone, then you'll start to realize that, wait a minute, I'm stopping digging. I'm stopping making myself feel bad. Stop the digging by wasting time watching crap on television or scrolling through stuff that is not serving you.
You mentioned about finding this place, and you had a bit of a picture, marble floors and that kind of stuff. Do you find things like visualization, where you're sort of imagining, like instead of thinking about the bad stuff that happens, I guess we all do from time to time, and you probably get overly consumed with that. Do you actively visualize and picture the sort of, these things that you want, and in turn, does that help you feel better?
It not only helps, it all but guarantees that you're at the very least going to get closer to your outcome. I call it the magnetic megapreneur. Entrepreneurs, are people that, by definition, people that have chosen to and actively pursue doing something other than, for themselves to earn money or whatever, other than the traditional employer-employee relationship. That's an entrepreneur. But there's millions and millions of those. A megapreneur is somebody that is super successful at it, and because most entrepreneurs aren't really successful at it, okay? But a megapreneur is, and there's certain things that person or those people do, and one of them is that they have developed the habit, like I said before, of managing their own emotional states, their own psychology, emotion, which transmits to activity, which transmits to results that you're going to get, that you want to get.
Is there a difference between like actively visualizing those results and I suppose daydreaming about?
Absolutely. So, and I'm sorry I got off on a tangent. I'm excited about this. I created a process. It's something that I learned from Think and Grow Rich years ago, and then I blended the neurosciences with the laws of attraction, if you will. And again, it's science now. And it's not just visualizing. Visualizing is one thing, but the way that we shift our psychology, see, my personal belief is that we all have the ability to influence the world around us, to bring into our lives the situations, circumstances, and even the material things that we desire. And proof of that is this, just that very first part, that we have the ability to influence things outside of us. Is if you've ever been sitting in a car and you feel somebody looking at you and you look over and they're looking at you.
Just the other day, I was
Or you look at somebody and they feel you and you're looking at them. You are impacting somebody energetically, as cosmic as it sounds, with your thoughts. And this is measurable. You go online and look up Carillion photography. You'll see that your electromagnetic energy grows when you put your intention and attention on somebody else. Well, there's four things that happen. Let's use that scenario as looking at somebody in the car. And this is one of the things that I teach in neuroencoding as well, because it's part of how to get what you want. That's my skill set, if you will. So when you're looking at somebody, as soon as you put your attention and intention on that person, four things happen. Your electromagnetic energy grows, means your cells put out more electricity, and it's measurable. You can see it. There's a Carillion photographer. You can see it. They can hook you up to machines, and you can see that your energy grows. The second thing that happens is they feel it. The third thing that happens is simultaneously their electromagnetic energy grows. But the fourth thing that happens is you become connected and attracted to each other. Now, let's take it a step further, because now let's look at, well, how does that work for a house or a car or a phone or whatever, okay? Everything on the planet, you tell me one thing it is not made of the same stuff. I don't care what it's the air that you can't see but you breathe it, water, whatever. Everything is made up of the same stuff.
Yeah.
And there's at least these three things: neutrons, protons, and wait for it, electrons, electricity, electromagnetic energy. So it's all made of the same stuff. So if it works for another person, then why wouldn't it work for something else? Why does the very thing that holds all of us on this planet called gravity, why does it work on everything and not just, because there's a big magnet at the center of the earth, spinning ball of iron. Why does it work on every single, a feather, whatever, and not just steel? And the answer is because that magnetism, let's just say it's had more time in the saddle attracting everything to it. Because things attract things like themselves. So if we're all made of the same stuff, then we do that. So I developed a process, or just put it down, a process that I do it every time. And I don't tell people that if you do this, you're going to get everything that you want when you want it. I don't get everything that I want when I want it. But I tell you, it's definitely going to stack the deck in your favor. Definitely. I mean, I got stories that I can tell you not only of myself, but people that I've taught, and, that it's amazing. It's like, I can't believe this. Well, you got it because you did believe it by forcing yourself to believe it, by looking at it, saying it. I say, see it, say it, move it, prove it. And you caused yourself to do that. And when you do, then guess what? Again, I can't guarantee it. And you're going to have better results than not doing anything at all, or just visualizing something.
Right. So we interviewed a guy called Richard Koch. He wrote a book called The 80-20 Principle. And when I was researching some of your stuff, I was fascinated by your neuro-encoding program. And I've, like I mentioned before, I've done it on an NLP, and I've done a lot of Tony's stuff. But I like your principle because there's obviously a lot to take in. And, even just what we've gone through today, it's like, wow, where do I start? Tell us a little bit about your program, and also for people that want and are in the business of helping others, how can that sort of benefit them?
Well, I created it, quite honestly, a couple reasons. But one of the main reasons is people have come to me my entire career in doing this and go, Joseph, how do I do what you do? Whether they're coaches, mentors, or run masterminds or certifications, or professionals like myself they're psychologists and psychiatrists and things like that, and they want to do what I do because, again, at the risk of sounding arrogant, I have operated at the upper 3 to 5% of everybody in my industry for well over 30 years. In terms of from financial standpoint, in terms of impacting people, in terms of the amount of people that I've been around, the amount of people I've been able to help and to teach. And I function at that area for 3 main reasons. Number one, I have content that solves the problems of the masses. I said this before: procrastination, hesitation, fear of failure, fear of success, self-doubt, self-loathing, imposter syndrome, and all those things. Those are the thieves of our dreams. Everybody's got them. And so when you have that type of content to first help yourself and help everybody else, then you appeal to a whole lot more people than the person that, I'm not knocking somebody that teaches yoga or something like that, but, and the person that does teach yoga, you have tools to be able to handle that person, because the reason the person doesn't do their practice is because of stuff that's going on here. That's number one. So,
and just on that, because I think that's an important point that I did write down. So when you say you've got something that appeals to the masses, from a business perspective, are you saying that rather than kind of coming up with something that's super niche, that if you can do something that applies to the masses, that's a useful thing to be focusing on with you?
Learn it and then and still do, whether you've got a niche or not.
Right.
Because I always tell people, listen, the person that has a niche that also can be able to help other people indulge in that niche. Because a niche means, whatever. Let's say the niche is working out, or, taking care of your body, or whatever it is. Listen, people want to do that, but the only reason they don't do it is because they don't have what you have, which is let's just say tenacity or determination, or however you got it to bring yourself to that place. Everybody wants it. So whatever you're teaching, if you add the skill of, because I've said it, through this interview several times, learn the skill of managing your own emotions. And so when you do, and you bring that to whatever you do, you enhance whatever you do. And you cause more people, because you start to think differently, and you cause more people to become attracted to that brand of what you're doing versus what somebody else is doing.
I like that. So, sorry I interrupted you. Carry on.
No, that's okay. Second step is the ability to administer those processes and get a result in somebody. In other words, and this is more designed for coaches, mentors, teachers, psychologists, psychiatrists, or whatever. But the ability to produce a change in somebody so that they get it. I call it tell, show, try, do. In other words, I'll tell you something, meaning I'm going to teach you something. Here's the knowledge, here's the steps, here's the process. Then I'm going to show you by example. Sometimes I'll pull somebody on stage, and in my course, you get to see me coach somebody and watch the process that I teach you and go, well, that's what he's doing. And then watch that person change right then and there. And then we follow up with that person 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, 2 months later, and you see that person's changes out of one session. And you see that they're a completely different person. So you tell them, then you show them. And then you have them try it for themselves. We do it together. And you can sometimes, when I say show, you can show them through an example or a story or something like that. And we teach you plenty of them. But then you have them try it for themselves so that they get a result right then and there. Because see, if I tell you something, you might believe it. But if you tell you something, you will believe it. And you tell yourself something through experience. And so you get them to have that experience, and then you give them something to do. Here's the critical part that's left out of so many things, is that you give them something to do when you're not around. Because they're in front of you now, then they're not, when you're gone, it's like, what are they going to do? So you got to give them something to do when you're not around. And then as they start to do that, and like that's, I said, the process of rewarding themselves and all those things, then they start to change as the person. They become that honeybee. And so that's the second thing. So the first thing is again, content that solves the masses, the problems of the masses. Number two is the ability to produce a result. And then number three is the ability to present it, market it, present it in a way that causes people to go, I need that, I want that, I'm going to do that. And it's somewhat mechanical to a certain extent. However, if you're going to wait, or if people say, well, listen, Joseph, you have this natural talent. I see you on stage and you have, no, I don't. I used to throw up before I used to go on stage. When I was a musician, I was so scared I had stage fright so bad. Everything that I do and everything that I teach in neuroencoding, every single thing has a step and a process. And as you do them, you get the result. Period. End of story. And so those three things. So when people ask me, Joseph, how do I do what you do? I thought to myself, well, because, people have asked me that my entire career. And I thought, well, I got all these certifications. I got a formal education. I got all this stuff. I got all the experience. You'd have to have all that stuff. And I thought, no, you don't. And I liken it to this. And I'll ask you, how many apps do you have on your phone?
Yeah, well, quite a few screens that...
Yeah, I have 272. But here's the question. How many of them do you actually use?
Yeah, probably 4 or 5.
Yeah, a handful of them. And so I looked at all of the stuff that I have, all the certifications, all of the tools, all the stuff, and I go, how many of them do I really use? And so I cherry picked the ones that I use, and that's what I do with neuroencoding to serve those three things that I said before. Content, change, ability to produce change, and presentation. So the person, whether it's in front of a camera, or 10,000 people, or one person, you're able to present in a way to cause that person to trust, feel good, take action, and continue to take activity.
And on that last one, we were talking before, like you've been involved with Tony Robbins, that's now doing these big virtual events, like what do you say, 140,000 people?
Yeah.
How important is it today, if you're in business, relating to what you're teaching, and I'm quite curious to even get involved in the program now, but how important is it today to be able to understand some of the skills you're talking about, even if you're a business leader, to be able to do some of those things in front of people on camera, to be able, because like when we're sitting together, it's very easy to get, like you talked about, that energy. We're vibing. We can, you're getting somewhere. Whereas when you do it on a screen, it's very different. How do you get that energy? Are they really feeling you? Are you really feeling them? Are you getting the message over? So does what you're talking about, can that also assist in trying to be effective, influencing, communicating other people in just general business?
Absolutely. And as a matter of fact, it is, I'm going to say, not only my saving grace, but now thousands of people saving grace because of this shift that we've had to make from live to camera. Because it's still the same thing. If you have the skill, you have the skill. If you know how to change a tire on a Toyota, then you know how to change a tire on a Corvette or something else. And so once you have the skill of being able to present, like I said, whether it's in front of a camera, 10,000 people, one person, 20 people, or whatever, the process still works. You see, it's influencing. See, I never look at a presentation as much as I look at influencing. Because if I'm going to go in front of a bunch of people, they're there and they want to be, that's my belief, they want to be influenced. Unless they're even people that are drugged there and don't want to be there, I'll still get them. And I'll get them through a process. It's one of the processes that we teach in neuroencoding. It's called the influence model, ILASA. I'll take them through this process, and by the end of that process, it's really simple, very easy. This is crazy, but you've seen it, okay? You have seen it. 20,000 people. How do I get them to get on their chairs and shake their asses?
Well, I would say, more importantly, Tony Robbins, everybody knows him. He's a one in a million, you know, like
no doubt.
He's got an amazing energy. And I always thought to you, like, how do you follow an act like that? And the first time I went, I'd never met you, and like, so everyone was like hitting the ceiling, and then you come on. And it's like, who's this guy? Exactly. You know, like, and you could sort of see people, right, is the event over and that sort of thing. But as I just told you, and I said, you know, that those final 2 days were the most impact for me. And you somehow in your own way, you managed to follow that act and get people to another level. And so, you know.
That's the process. Yeah. Because I have a process. And if you know what it is, you'll see and you're going, that's what he's doing. And it's the reason why. Real quick story, that sort of developed. What you said is true. You know, there's the old saying, they go, never follow kids or pets, okay? Because they'll upstage you. I say never follow kids, pets, or Tony Robbins, because they fall in love with the guy, rightfully so. He's amazing. And so years ago in Australia, Tony called me up, and I was never on stage. And he goes, I need you to do this last day. I need you to do the health day. And I go, I need you to kiss my ass, because I'm not going to do it. And I don't know how to do it. But what I knew was this process. And so when I went out there, and I didn't do it right away. When I went out there, these Aussies were just vicious. Where's Tony? We didn't come to see you. And they were leaving. They were getting up and leaving. And I interrupted their pattern. I go, hey, stop. And you've seen me do this. I go, stop where you are right now. Turn around. They were leaving in droves. And I go, I know what you're thinking. You're looking at me and you're judging me. You're looking at me and you're expecting a 6'7" white guy, and you got a 5'9" black guy, and you're looking at me and you're going, look at him. He's amazing. Oh my God. And I get them laughing. And I've interrupted their pattern, and then I do the influence model on them. They all sat down, and now I've been doing that for probably close to 30 years, that same event for 30 years now. And so it's not following somebody. It's not trying to be like somebody. It is being who you are and having a system and a process that's going to cause your audience to trust, pay attention, and take action and continue to take action. And that's part of the one of the 3 legs of neuroencoding is to encode yourself with that first, because that's all I'm doing. From the stage, I'm encoding people. I'm programming people to respond a certain way. I know it might sound manipulative, but the truth of the matter is people show up. People pay their money because they want to change. You don't change without influencing somebody. You're never going to change somebody unless you influence them then to change for themselves. You can change them in the moment. But if you don't influence them to continue to do it once you've left that room, then you haven't done your job, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. So where does, if people are interested, where can they come? Is it virtual, live?
It's all of the above. It's called the Neuroencoding Institute, and you can go to neuroencoding.com. I'm sure you put it in. We'll put it up there. And stuff, and I put some videos there, and I explain more about what it is, because neuroencoding is to simplify it, is giving people the ability to deliberately program themselves, not reprogram themselves, but program themselves to automatically default to your best thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, so that we can do it for ourselves, and then we can do it for other people. So if you're a coach, you're a mentor, you're a teacher, you're on mastermind groups, you're whatever that you do, and you already do it, this at the very least lays on top of it. But one of the greatest parts, because I know a lot of people don't have content, and I know a lot of people who want to help people, who want to change people. So we provided 3 courses that you can teach. And by the way, it's a license program. You don't owe me any money. It's like you get to teach this stuff. I give you keynotes that you can teach. I give you all these things. Plus, there's an unbelievable support system that live people train, my trainers that are some of the best in the world will continue to work with you, and me too.
Are you delivering it?
I'm delivering it, yes. Right. I'm delivering it myself as well. And so it is, and you can go, it's a certification course, so you got to go through it. You got to learn the things, and we're going to not just test you, but we're going to make sure that you've got these things as well. You can do it. I've had people do it in a weekend, but most people will take 3 or 4, maybe 5 weeks to go through it, because it's fairly intense. But when you're on the other side, you're not just certified. You have this thing that you can put on your wall. You have a skill that you can change people and literally go out there into the world, because that to me is what separates again, I always say this, the risk of sounding arrogant, separates me from all the hundreds and thousands of other coaches and mentors and things like that. You can put me out there in the street in the worst condition, and I'm going to come out smelling like a rose, but I'm going to bring a lot of people with me. I'm going to help a lot of people as well. And that's why I wanted to do that. That's why I created it. And what I encourage people to do is, if any of this interests you, if you have that calling in your heart that you want to help people, that you want to make a difference in your life and other people's lives as well, go check it out. I made a bunch of videos. You can get a bunch of information about it. You'll see other people that have gone through it and everything. And it's an amazing. It is the gift that COVID gave me. I was telling your wife earlier that when COVID came around, everything that because I was a live speaker, Now I do coaching, and at the risk of sounding arrogant, for me to coach people, at the very least, it's going to cost you $350,000 a year, and I'm going to only meet with you 12 times. Okay, and so wherever you are. Whatever level you are right now, people want some of what I have. And I'm at that stage in my career where I want to pay it forward and make it easy for more people to do it. Lastly, I'll say this, is that, and it's not me saying this, it's Forbes magazine and others that are saying that the personal development and information, personal growth and all that stuff, this industry is poised to become $1 billion a day industry. Now, if you think about that, that's $350 billion a year, and we're well along the way. And so if I'm operating that up with 3 to 5%, there's plenty of room for a lot of other people to do it, to add to what you're already doing or to create, start your own career in doing it.
Fantastic. So my final question then, Joseph, and it links into COVID, we asked you a question on the last one, but this is very specific to the moment. Escape Your Limits is about escaping what you've believed is impossible, gone on to make possible. What would be your memorable pandemic example of where you've escaped your own personal limits?
Oh, yeah. What I teach, and I've been saying this in the very beginning, physician, heal thyself. My limits only last a short amount of time. There's no fearless people, but there are people who fear less. And when I say fear less, I don't mean less in quantity, I mean less in time. What happened to me, and I remember the date, March 15th, 2020, when the pandemic just hit. I looked at my calendar and there was nothing. My last promoter called me and said, Joseph, we're going to have to cancel, 4 or 5. And I was booked into 2022 and getting ready to go into 23. Every single month, I had at least one event that I was doing. That's what I do. One by one, they'd been dropping off. But that day, on March 15th, I looked at my calendar, I pushed the button, and eliminated those from my calendar, and there was nothing. I had nothing for the rest of my life, nothing. And what happened to me was I got this fearful feeling, and I thought to myself, what am I going to do? And all of a sudden, without my having to change my state, I calmed down automatically, because remember, that's programming yourself to default to that. And I got excited, and I jumped up. I went into the bathroom, in my office, and I looked myself in the eyes, and I said, Joseph, what do we get to do now? And it's from that everything changed. Everything changed. And I never, and your wife and I were talking about this, and you were saying it as well. We get to spend time with our families. We got to do all these things. I got to enjoy the home that I built, spend more time in my jacuzzi, all those things, greenhouse, all the stuff that I put on Instagram and all those things, and create neuroencoding. I've wanted to do this for so long, and to do something that's going to serve people at a higher level, because it wasn't the money. It wasn't about, I'm not going to make money as I'm doing this now. I'm not going to say I don't have enough money, but, I'm fine in that area. But I wanted to, but it was, if you took away my ability to impact people, that would hurt me more. And so now I get to impact even more people in this way, and I get to teach people to impact other people more as well.
Fantastic. Joseph, thank you so much for your time.
It was my absolute pleasure, my friend. Thank you again. And thank you for being the first person in my home to do this. Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed this podcast. If you did, then please go over to iTunes and subscribe to the Escape Your Limits podcast. Leave a review, leave a comment. It really would help us a lot to continue to keep these going.